Make a 5-minute start, please. Ladies and gentlemen, 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's make a start, shall we? So can I ask those still enjoying the beautiful light refreshments to come on down? For those who haven't found a seat yet, there are plenty of really useful seats down the front. I encourage you to come down as much as we can. So as we're settling into tonight, I'd like to, firstly, members of Parliament, mayors, councillors, local government CEOs, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls. Good evening and welcome to Encore Events Centre for tonight's Western Region Metropolitan Assembly for 2018. My name is Chris Robinson and I'll be your MC for this evening, and my job as best I can will be to keep us all focused on time and focused on creating high impact discussions and ideas for your region. Now, the Western Partnership is one of 6 metropolitan partnerships established by the Victorian Government, recognising that local communities are in the best position to understand the challenges and opportunities faced by their region. Over the next 2 hours, you will have the opportunity to learn what was said last year in this very assembly and how this assembly assisted delivering outcomes for the West. And secondly, to add your thoughts tonight and to play a direct role in setting priorities for this year. Tonight you'll be supported by table hosts and scribes, and by way of introduction, can I have a show of hands of those so tables know who to look to for assistance? Great. So thank you in advance for your assistance tonight. And they're here to help you, but if at any stage you need any assistance, do show your hands. We have roving assistant staff here tonight. Tonight will be in 3 parts. First part, in a moment, will be a formal welcome and open of tonight by Alex Cockram, Chair of the Western Partnership, followed by Lily D'Ambrosio, who is the Minister for Suburban Development, and Jill Hennessy, Minister for Health and Minister for Ambulance Services, and a special guest, a youth representative, who will be sharing some insights from what a youth assembly found a few months ago. The second part will give you an opportunity to have some feedback on last year's successes or questions. And the third part of tonight will be a discussion at your table in deeper dive into issues that matter for you. Now, before I leave this stage, a couple of final housekeeping matters. Firstly, bathrooms are at the main door to the right, ladies and gents. I invite you to put your phones on silent for the remainder of this evening, just as a courtesy to your guests and speakers. Be aware of any slip, trips or fall hazards. There are some white cables and tripods down here, so if you are walking around the room, please be mindful of that. Tea and coffee and lovely refreshments are served all night, so if you feel the need that wasn't enough and you need a little bit more, help yourself at any stage. And be mindful that we are live streaming tonight's presentations, not table conversations. And so it's a special hello to everyone watching from home or from wherever you're watching this, perhaps on a long commute on a tram or train around Melbourne. So to look forward, just a final reminder, there are videographers tonight and photographers in the room, so you may see them floating about. If you do not wish to be involved or take a film or photo of you, please make yourself known to our staff, our team, and they'll make arrangements for you. So is that all clear so far? Great. So to reflect on 2017 and to look forward to setting our challenge, I'm delighted and it gives me great pleasure to welcome Alex Cockram, the Chair of the Western Region Partnership. Alex.
Thanks, Chris, and a good evening to everyone. Thank you all particularly for coming out to talk and advocate for what is great about the West of Melbourne and what we can do to make it even better, more inclusive and a more prosperous community for all. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay respects to elders both past and present. I have to remember I have a clicker, great. A very special welcome to our honoured guests, the Minister for Suburban Development, the Honourable Lily D'Ambrosio, Minister for Health and Minister for Ambulance Services, and the Member for Altona, the Honourable Jill Hennessy, the Minister for Consumer Affairs, Gaming, Liquor Regulation, and the Minister for Local Government, and Member for Cororoy, the Honourable Marlene Carews, the Minister for Industry and Employment, and the Member for Nidri, the Honourable Ben Carroll, the Minister for Training and Skills, Minister for Corrections and Member for Western Victoria, the Honourable Gail Tierney, Member for Williamstown, the Honourable Wade Noonan, Member for Western Metropolitan, Mr Caesar Mellum, Mayors and Councillors of the cities of Wyndham, Melton, Hobsons Bay, Maribyrnong, Brimbank and Moonee Valley, and all of you here as part of the community of the West of Melbourne. A very big welcome to everybody and thank you for coming to the second annual assembly of the Western Metropolitan Partnership. This year for the first time, as Chris mentioned, we've got people who are participating online as part of our virtual assembly. So a big hello to all of those that are participating online and please do keep contributing throughout the evening. We're really interested in your thoughts and responses. The Western Metropolitan Partnership was appointed by the Minister for Suburban Development and the Special Minister of State just over 12 months ago. And in that time, we've come a very long way. Our task is to present strategic advice to government based on our own knowledge and experience of the region, and on what the Western community tells us via our engagement activities and via evenings such as the annual Assembly. Before I continue, for those who were not here at last year's Assembly, I'd like to introduce you to my fellow members of the Western Metropolitan Partnership. And as I do this, can I please ask all of the members to stand, please? The Deputy Chair and Vice-Chancellor of Victoria University, Professor Peter Dawkins. Thank you, Peter. Development Manager, Impact Investment Group, Mr. James Fitzgerald. Regional Manufacturing Operations Manager, Asahi Beverages, Anna Reid. CEO of Western Chances, Rill Dorrington. CEO, Citywide Service Solutions, Chris Campbell. Diversity, Capability, Development Manager, Australian Unity, Eleni Bereded Samuel. And the Lead Deputy Secretary and Corporate Services in the Department of Economic Development, Jobs, Transport and Resources, Luke Wilson. I particularly want to acknowledge the wonderful CEOs of the local government across the west of Melbourne who are also part of our partnership group. CEO for Wyndham City Council, Kelly Grigsby, and thank you to Wyndham for hosting us here this evening. CEO of Melton City Council, Kelvin Torrey. CEO of Hobsons Bay City Council, Erin Van Egmond. CEO of Maribyrnong City Council, Stephen Wall. CEO of Brimbank City Council, Helen Morrissey, and CEO of Moonee Valley City Council, Brian Lancaster. As I guess I'm indicating, the West is a big region. We have 6 local government areas, and all of our local governments partner with the partnership in such a successful way. It's been fantastic to work together. From the start, we've been committed to taking a long-term approach to our task and to developing an ongoing dialogue with government, with business, and with you, the community of the West. The purpose of tonight is to continue that conversation that we started last year, to let you know what we've been working on, and to ultimately gain your insights and inform our work going forward. Some of you may have been at last year's Assembly, which we had in sunshine. The top themes included education and training, economy, industry and jobs, infrastructure and transport, social welfare, housing, environment and health. The input gathered from last year helped us to form our advice to government in line with our vision for the West. We want to promote the West as being a great place where you can live, work, learn and play close to home, enjoying unique places and the strengths of our diverse and inclusive society. For 2017, our advice to government was based on the following 6 priority outcomes: jobs and skills, public transport, road congestion and freight, reduced entrenched disadvantage through better health and education, connected communities, greener region, and waste and a recycling centre of excellence. I hope all of those resonate with you here in the room. Since submitting our first package of advice to government, we've formed working groups under each theme. We're already working collaboratively with government departments and other key stakeholders to progress all 6 priority outcomes. And shortly, we will all hear from Minister for Suburban Development on how government has responded to our 2017 advice. We believe that there are many fantastic strengths in our region, but also recognise there's still significant challenges. And I want to thank all of you that contributed your thoughts prior to coming to the Assembly this evening, because that is what reflected in your comments that you submitted. Our region is incredibly diverse. We have young communities where many are committed to improving the opportunities for their families through education and work. We have a rich natural environment, much of it not well understood by people outside of the West, an extensive coastline, inland waterways in Werribee and Maribyrnong. But there are also deep pockets of disadvantage in the West where there's less jobs and education opportunities, less access through good roads and public transport to services, jobs and recreation. And we want to focus our work on reducing these gaps and on progressing better outcomes to our region. We, as a partnership, are confident that we can do this, but we need your help because in the West, our greatest asset is you and the remarkable people that live here. Our goal Our goal now is to capitalise on the wealth of opportunities that exist within our region and to realise our full potential as the cultural heart of Melbourne. The Western region is made up of the local governments, as we've mentioned, Wyndham, Melton, Hobsons Bay, Maribyrnong, Brimbank and Moonee Valley, as depicted on the map. We're entering a time of rapid change and of very significant population growth. We need to work collaboratively to plan for the impacts of this change across our region. And to do this, we need to hear from you, the people who live, work, study and visit in the region. And that is why you're here tonight. We have also sought the views of young people in our region at the youth forum that was held on the 7th of May, and we will hear from one of them later. So tonight we want you to tell us what you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities facing our region over the next 30 years. And after tonight, the partnership will take what you've told us and start developing our 2018 advice to government. We'll investigate the evidence and work through options with government and also importantly, other key stakeholders in the region that can support us to deliver real outcomes for our community. The West is your region, and I encourage you to use this opportunity to have your say with what matters to you through the partnership and through that directly to government. So let's continue on this journey together and tackle the impacts of Melbourne's growing population by planning for a region that is prosperous, innovative, livable and connected. Thank you. I now have the pleasure in welcoming to the stage the Minister for Suburban Development, the Honourable Lily D'Ambrosio, and the Minister for Health and Minister for Ambulance Services, the Honourable Jill Hennessy.
Good evening to all of you, and thank you very much, Alex, for your terrific introduction. It's very much appreciated, and also highlighting the work that has occurred over the last year from the partnership on behalf of this terrific part of Melbourne. And certainly thank you very much also for Jill Hennessy being able to also be here together with a great number of my ministerial colleagues who are here, and they've all been mentioned earlier, so I won't rattle down the list again, and also other members of Parliament. You are absolutely blessed with having so many very, very strong elected advocates for this region, not just in the Parliament but around the Cabinet table. I do want to, of course, also formally acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting here tonight, and I pay my respects to all elders, past and present, and any who may be here amongst us today. And it's certainly a pleasure to be here to welcome you all to the second annual Assembly of the Western Metropolitan Partnership. And it's been a great journey in this last year, and what I do want to do is to be very focused on why we are doing things that are very different in the way that you would normally expect governments to be. And one of our key focuses, if you like, or agendas is to ensure that whatever we do as a government, that we want all Victorians to have fair access to jobs, to infrastructure and services, no matter where people live. And this is a really important objective for us. And it's an important statement that we want to keep saying, because ultimately governments can't afford to take a cookie-cutter approach to the way that we address the challenges that do exist across metropolitan Melbourne. We know that there are many things that are common across Melbourne, the different communities that we do have, but there are also many, many differences, and there are many different views about what the future of the region ought to be. So our job in government is to make sure that every community is able to and enabled to be able to have its own vision shaped by the consultations and the conversations that happen through events like tonight, through the way that the partnership operates. And that is absolutely important for us, because every community has its own vision shaped by the particular opportunities and challenges that you know better than anybody else in terms of what exists across your community. So that's why we are absolutely committed to taking a bottom-up approach, hearing from you directly and through your partnerships what your strategic priorities are. And before I hand over to my good friend Jill. I do want to just make an announcement that is a result of one of the priorities that you had articulated through the partnership, which is a very important one, and that of course is how the Western region sees itself in terms of opportunities for the recycling sector, if you like, and dealing with waste. And I know that we've heard very loud and clear that what you wanted to do is look for the great opportunities that do exist in taking a feature and a significant employer in terms of the waste industry that does exist in the West into something of excellence. And I'm very pleased to say that on top of some significant funding that we've already contributed broadly to the need to uplift our recycling sector across the state, I'm also very excited tonight to be able to say that we are in response directly to the partnership priorities that will be providing funding for the business case to be developed for the creation of a centre of excellence for resource recovery in the Western region. And I want to pause on that and just to thank Caesar Mellon for some really terrific work that he did on behalf of myself last year in terms of bringing together and synthesising the types of opportunities that could be developed up through something like a business case. And I'm very much looking forward to working with the partnership and the local government authorities of the West on this fabulous project. So very much looking forward to that. And once again, thank you very much for coming here tonight and taking part in something that is absolutely very exciting and very, very important in the way that government functions and the way that we help to prioritise through your own priorities, help to shape our priorities in terms of investment in these key areas of jobs, infrastructure and services. So thank you, and Jill, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks very much. Well, thank you very much, Lily, and a big hearty welcome to everyone here tonight. I would like to begin my comments by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and to pay my respects to elders past and present and any future leaders that may be with us here today, and acknowledge our wonderful Minister for Suburban Development, Lily D'Ambrosio, who is incredibly authentic when she talks about her commitment to ensure that the voice of Melbourne's suburbs are brought to the decision-making tables of government. And the design of the partnerships is aimed at doing exactly that. Now, I'm really conscious that there are so many of you here in the room tonight that have come along to talk about your issue, your priority, and your vision, and the worst thing that we could do is to talk at you all night. So I'm going to be uncharacteristically brief. I want to begin by thanking all of the work that's being done by those who have participated in the partnership. And one of the great challenges that governments always have is actually identifying what the priorities should be. That there's a certain finite bucket of resources. There's a certain regulatory degree of permission that one has from the community. And setting out what those priorities might be are really difficult decisions to make. But engaging community and community leaders to help make those decisions, to influence those decisions, are absolutely critical. And all of the issues that have been identified as priorities, they're all important as they stand alone by themselves, but they're all integrated, particularly when it comes to the West. Things like access to transport, access to health and education, quality jobs, a sustainable environment, a connected future, the reduction of inequality, they all influence each other as well. And so tonight we hope that you bring your insights and your passion and your priority to the discussion. They will then provide the partnership with the ability to provide independent advice to government in setting out what those priorities are. And in the West, we all know what our great challenges are. It's setting the priorities. It's looking and searching for those innovative solutions, whether that's around managing the growth in our outer western suburbs, whether that's dealing with renewal
in our middle suburbs and looking at the changing demography, how we manage densification and increasing densification in our inner western suburbs, and how it is that we all collectively have a shared vision of what our future is, and how we have the confidence that we are taking the steps, both from a policy level and from an investment and funding approach, to have some degree of confidence that we are achieving those as well. I am so delighted that we are going to be engaging and hearing from some of the younger people in our communities. Having things like polling ability tonight, that also helps our conversation not just be about what the usual suspects or those of us that get the opportunity to have our voices heard. We need to make sure we're listening to the quiet voices. We need to make sure that we're understanding what their priorities are as well. And together, we've got an opportunity and in fact an obligation to help continue to refine those priorities so government can focus on delivering on those in partnership with all of our local councils and our local communities as well. So I hope that you all have a satisfying, engaging night. I hope you leave with a degree of optimism about the future of the West. I would not live anywhere else. We know what our challenges and opportunities are, and tonight we've got an opportunity to think about how we set the priorities and how we deal with some of the integrated nature of those issues that we've identified already. Have a fantastic night, and thank you very much for coming.
Well, the challenge is set. Thank you very much, Ministers, for your introduction and call to action. We've heard tonight already that there has been some engagement prior to tonight around youth. I'm delighted that around about the 7th of May this year we had assembled years 9 to 12 representatives from all 6 regions of Melbourne in the State Library, half-day program of engagement. And to share some of the insights, findings and learnings, we have 2 speakers. Ril Dorrington. Ril was introduced previously as the CEO of Western Chances, and a special guest tonight, Ascende Singabui. And Ascende is a Year 12 student from Copperfield College. She's a Western Chances Scholarship recipient for 2016, 2017, 2018. She's a Trinity Young Leaders Program participant at Melbourne University, and in her spare time, of which I don't think there's much, she's a keen soccer player. So firstly, over to you, please. Please join me in welcoming both up to the lectern. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris, and good evening, everyone. I'd just like to say, West is best, chuck out the rest. So I'm just going to give you a very brief background about the Metropolitan Partnerships Youth Forum before handing over to a bona fide young person, Ascende. The Youth Forum was designed to ensure that the views of our young people are taken into account in this year's Metropolitan Partnerships Advice to Government. And this is because we recognised we needed to provide more effective engagement with young people across Melbourne. About 120 young people between the ages of 15 and 19 from schools and organisations across Melbourne came together in a facilitated forum similar to this one to discuss their experience of living, studying and working in Melbourne. My fellow partnership member James Fitzgerald and I attended the Youth Forum, and we heard firsthand what the young people had to say about our mighty Western region and about metropolitan Melbourne in general. James and I thought the forum was a huge success and an excellent way to engage with our young people. I was so impressed with their input. I would love to see them running the country. They were articulate, succinct, honest and very, very passionate. And they raised issues the partnership had not yet addressed. So now you get to hear firsthand from one of the Youth Forum participants, as Chris said, Ascende Singabui, who will share with us some of her own reflections about the forum. Thank you and go West.
Thank you, Ril. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders both past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge the ministers, mayors and councillors of Melbourne's Western Metropolitan region, and the members of the Western Metropolitan Partnership. On Monday, the 7th of May, I, along with another Western Chancellor Scholarship recipient, had the opportunity to attend the Metropolitan Partnership's Youth Forum. I was as a representative of Copperfield College. The event was held at the State Library of Victoria, and as Will said, there were a number of students from across Melbourne, from different regions, from Eastern and Western. The group included 21 young people from a range of schools and western suburbs such as Almanda K9 College, Hoppers Crossing Secondary College, and Werribee Secondary College. The atmosphere of the event was very amazing. The energy was high, and it was an opportunity where we got to give input from different areas, our different areas. As for me, coming from a suburb in St Albans, hearing the problems and improvements that could be made in an area like Werribee, where I don't live and I don't know much of. The first activity that we participated in was a panel discussion on Melbourne's livability, and then we had table discussions on Melbourne's challenges, focusing on how we as young people are affected by those challenges. We later went on into a regional breakout session where we were asked to discuss what we loved about Melbourne's West and what we found the most frustrating and wished we could improve the most. Our thoughts were captured by a talented storyboard artist, which you can see on the screen. So they depicted everything that was said, all the problems and all the positive things about the Western region. So the young people in our Western Metropolitan region felt that the most loved feature of Melbourne's West is its culturally diverse community. We are able to embrace our different cultures and different ethnicities, which is a great thing. But what we found most frustrating in Melbourne's western suburbs is that it is not easy to get around on public transport. So we would definitely like to see improvements in the public transport system. At the Youth Forum, we were asked what we would like to add to the list of priorities for the Metropolitan Partnership to consider, and we came up with the following important issues that need to be addressed: violence and bullying, drugs and alcohol, and homelessness. They're issues that not many consider that are really big, but at the same time they are becoming a problem within like the smaller suburbs and where people usually don't know most of. The Youth Forum was a great opportunity to have my voice and the voice of many other youths heard by the government through the Metropolitan Partnership representing the Western Suburbs community. Thank you for listening. Now we're going to show a short video capturing the highlights of the event.
I was actually pretty surprised because a lot of people had the same opinions as I did, which made me pretty happy to know that other people care about the opinions that I thought no one cared about, and all these amazing things that I never thought that I would see from other people in my community.
So we've been focusing majorly on the health sector, which is something that I'm very passionate about. I'm very interested in that, how to mental health and health promotion and nutritious foods, trying to get rid of all the fast food and make it more nutritious so that it's an affordable way. Something that caught me off guard was our green footprint. It sounds horrible, but I didn't think too much of it, but I now realize how much of an issue climate change and carbon emission and everything is. So it's something that's very important, and we need to be addressing it more.
Some of the things that I loved hearing about today were issues such as social justice, the environment, climate change. They're really important to the people of West. One thing that I was particularly surprised about was the youth were really interested to get involved more in multicultural events, communities, and they see that as a big strength of the West of Melbourne.
Join me in thanking, please, our great speakers, Will and Assemblies. Good work. So let's crack on, shall we? Lots of things we've talked about. There's the pride in the region, there's a diversity of our community, it's a complex place is the West. It's a fast-growing part of Melbourne. It's jobs and skills and transport and public transport, Ascendo raised there. Lots of things going on, in addition to really quite specific issues of the youth, violence and bullying, drugs, alcohol, homelessness, really important topics for us all to be aware of. Now, there was mention earlier about polling, so Tonight's a little bit about polling, but more about you having a conversation at your tables. But to get going on the polling and to make sure we know what we're doing, I'm going to invite you to retrieve your handset that you should have collected when you arrived. If you have not collected one, please raise your hand. We'll get some out to you. 2 down the centre, 1 over here, sir. Down the front. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, as we're settling in, it looks a little bit like a BlackBerry back in the old days. Remember those? Almost a decade ago. It's only useful tonight. So sadly you won't be able to check your stock market, the footy scores, your fantasy tipping, or email your children, or find their phone. All those things that parents like doing. So we'll just wait till devices come down. So just to get started, ladies and gents. Okay, how are we going? Are we done? We're done. Great. So, shh. Thanks, ladies and gents. We're now good to go. So on your device, shortly I'll be showing some questions on the screen in front of you. The answer to the questions will be repeated on your screen, or the options for you to choose on your handset. You can scroll up and down using the device, up and down until you've found the correct answer for your question, and then you can press the green button to say, yes, I'll select that. If you don't like it and you make a mistake, you can press the red triangle and change your mind. Yeah? Does that make sense? Green for go, red for I'm sorry I made a mistake, I want to do it again. Okay, make sense? Good. Let's put the questions up. So, what is the West best known for? Is it 1, multiculturalism? Is it 2, beaches? Is it 3, trade and manufacturing? Is it 4, the great rivers of the Werribee and the Maribyrnong? Or is it 5, markets and festivals? You have a short period of time and you can cast your vote. As you can see, the screen is time-based. You have 60 seconds. The time is up now. So there we go. You can see for yourself, overwhelmingly, the view of tonight from this sample is that multiculturalism is what the West is best known for. Great. Can I ask you to put your handsets aside for the moment? So we've taught ourselves how to do it. We'll come back to the handsets later on this evening. But let's go old school. So at your table, with your table host, there are a series of documents that we invite you to reflect on. One is a summary of the 2017 advice that was provided by your partnership to government, and in fact the corresponding response by government to those recommendations. At each of your table, you've got that material. I'm going to invite you now to spend some time reflecting on that with your host, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. What are your initial reactions to the advice and the commitments that were made since last year? Did we capture everything that's important for the West? And thirdly, if you could add one, if need be, what else would you add for 2018? You might find that they are exactly what's still required this year, and that's completely fine. Now, your table scribes will record the conversations in an activity, and if at the end of that conversation there's a really special new one to add, a card will be passed through to our team here. But if not, that's completely fine. You do not have to do so. So I'm going to leave it to you. Spend 20 or so minutes doing this, and at 7:10 we'll be having a short break and inviting you to come back, but in a new table environment. So good luck. I look forward to hearing your deliberations, and I'll see you in about 20 minutes' time. Thank you. We have 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, so good time to collect your thoughts, and if there's any big ideas that are missing, think about them now. So 5 minutes, please. Sorry to interrupt, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm afraid time has beaten us on this first conversation. But I'd invite you to do a couple of things. I invite you to just collect your thoughts. If there are any other big topics or issues that need to be addressed, please let your table host know. They'll write that down and we'll collect them and we'll put them up for the poll after we come back from today's evening break. We're going to take a 10-minute break. When you come back, you may not be at the same table. You may wish to join a table to talk about specifically something of interest to you. So if I could bring your attention, ladies and gents, to the screens. Each table will have a new focus. And these are topics raised by the partnership over the past year, also raised by consultation with people like yourself over the same period. You can see their health and well-being, education, jobs, transport, housing, environmental sustainability, parks, community, personal, and a couple of extra spats. So, ladies and gents, I'm going to give you a 10-minute break, and you're welcome to grab a break, grab a bite to eat, and promptly come back in 10 minutes, and we can get started on a deep dive into those topics. So thank you. Let's have a break. Okay, we have 5 minutes, ladies and gents, so make yourself your final cup of tea, find some food and get to your new table. The new tables are up on the screen. Find your way to a topic of your choice. Thank you. 5 minutes. So as a reminder, ladies and gents, you may want to change tables. The table topics are different. On the screen in front of you are the new themes. So come on down, bring your food down. So let's make ourselves comfortable and seated. And we'll make a start. All right, so as we're getting ourselves settled, I hope you had a pleasant break. I hope you reflected on what we were speaking about this morning, or this earlier, should I say. Now, in your, ladies and gents, let me help you. Your comments were passed through from your table host. There are 2 new topics which have been added. The topics in addition to what we saw previously, and the topics are marketing and promotions of the West, and that is down the very back, but don't take that as anything other than the newest table. Thank you for joining us. And intercultural development and community development down the back as well. So these are 2 broad topics that were added by your own hand before the break. So thank you. Now, before we go any further, this is the second part, the third part of our program. So first we heard about the background, we heard the ministers providing the context and an announcement from Minister D'Ambrosio, which was, I think, well received by many quarters here. Also, we heard the story of the youth engagement, and I think that was terrifically received as well, so thank you for that. Gave you an opportunity to give feedback on last year, and I look forward to seeing the results of your discussions at your table. And here's just a reminder as well. The table hosts try very hard to record conversations. Please help them by giving your best a concise and succinct message or story so they can pass that story on to the partnership and, of course, eventually to the ministers and cabinet when decisions are made for the West. And I think you want your voice really clearly made in that conversation. So help them by being as succinct as you can be. You also intimated that today we want to hear back some other feedback on priorities from last year and these ideas. So I'm going to invite you to retrieve your handset. That's your handset, yeah, your little voting polling device. And you'll see in front of you on the list, and certainly on your handset it will be repeated, there are now 12 key priorities that have been discussed. 3 additional ones from tonight. Affordable and social housing has been added, marketing and promotions of the West, and intercultural development. We want to get a pulse from you as to where you think tonight the key priorities for you or your organisation or your views of the West are on those. So to assist us, I'm going to invite you to look at them all. There's also the original list on your table if you need to look any further. I'm going to invite you to think of the top 3. Yeah, it's an impossible task, isn't it? I'm going to invite you to think of the top 3. I'm not going to hold you to it, and it's not binding in that sense, but it is a pulse for the partnership to understand where your minds are at. And I'm going to invite you to vote on the top 3, and the way you do that is on your handset. There will be the numbers running through from 1 to 12, and also the text will be written there as well. You scroll through, click the middle button on the one you like, then scroll through, click the middle button on the one you like, and then the third time scroll through, click the middle button on the one you like. When you've done that 3 times, you press green to submit. Okay? So scroll through your device, have a look at your top 3, and when you're ready, you can press submit. So, are we open? Our time is open. Over to you. Are we going? 30? 53 have done, 30 are waiting. We're waiting on 30 people. Okay. 10 to go. Very good. If only all polls were this quick, it would be very easy. And we're getting down to... Okay, 3, 2, 1, we're going to close the polls, and that's our response. So we've got top 3, and this is accumulation of all of them. Jobs, public transport, congestion and freight, and reducing disadvantage through better health and education services. Not to say the others are not significant nor important at all, but it does show where the mind is at tonight. And in many ways, I think that's something that Alex was talking about this afternoon when she introduced today's conversation. Many of those are known concerns, they're known issues, and we need a consolidated and significant effort to make that happen. So thank you for polling. If you didn't get your vote in time, just let us know, and we'll add you to the list manually if that didn't happen in time. So, thanks for that. Now's the time at your table to deep dive, and I really encourage you to think about the topic at your table more specifically. It's of interest to you, that's why you're sitting at that table, and I invite you to do a couple of things. We've heard about health and well-being, we've heard about education, we've heard about things. We've also heard about how do we get on and make things happen? How do we make an impactful recommendation from this group to the partnership so they have some more evidence to, on your behalf and with other tools at their disposal, go to government and go to other agencies and say, this is what we've heard. So I want you to think about this. I want you to think about what is the real issue or matter that we can impact at your table, on your topic. What's the nub of that? What's the one that has the most power you can impact? Secondly, what are the opportunities that may exist around the topic at your table? And I feel, as a lot of you might feel, how do we know when we've reached that? How do we know when we're going to be successful? What does success look like around that topic? So, what can we really impact? What really are the opportunities? And how will we know that we are successful? Now, at your table host will help scribe, they'll be writing some ideas down, help them make it a most powerful story that you from some tables can share with us tonight, but certainly let the story be known across the partnership. So I invite you to have fun, get involved, roll the sleeves up. We're going to be doing this for half an hour, and I'll be checking in about 20 minutes' time to see how we go. So good luck and Godspeed. We have 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. 5 minutes. Thank you. We have 1 or 2 more minutes left, so if you haven't done so, can I ask you to complete your storyboard, or at least make a good start at it? 1 or 2 more minutes, please. Ladies and gents, so sorry to stop it. So sorry to stop it. I was just chatting with the Minister very briefly there, and we both agreed there is such a good vibe in here tonight. And I've heard a number of times that the West is the best. So I'm on the side. I'm a fan. I'm a Richmond supporter, but I should change my colours pretty quickly. Yeah. Okay. Look, we don't have time, sadly, to get through everyone's feedback tonight. However, I would like to hear a very brief summary of some of the conversations, particularly of those topics that you rated earlier this evening as really important to you. All are important, I might add, of course. Now, there's a couple of tables I'd like to hear from. This jobs and skills and entrepreneurship table. I'd really like to hear from the transport, public transport congestion and freight table, as well as the health and wellbeing and sense of disadvantage table. And maybe if we can also hear from the environmental sustainability and the greener region table. These are topics that you polled as very important. So can I have a mic out to who'd like to go? Yep, quick. We don't have much time. Just a few comments, sir. One or two of your key points. Thank you. You're going to hold it.
Hi, I'm John Forrester, the Werribee Riverkeeper. I've been working with community groups in the west of Melbourne now, including on the Maribyrnong catchment and in the Werribee catchment, along with Environmental Justice Australia for the last 6 to 9 months on a project called Rivers of the West. The Yarra River Act, a terrific act of Parliament, was passed by the current government about 2 years ago, started 2017, and in that is mentioned that there shall be things done on the Werribee and the Maribyrnong, and it's now time for those things to be put in force and get done. So what we're suggesting in this Rivers of the West Act, which in fact could be a Green Infrastructure Act, and it's available on the EGA website and a few other places, is to roll out some of the provisions of the Yarra River Act and bring them out west. And it would aid such things as, based on the general principles of the Yarra River Act, such as social outcomes, cultural outcomes, economic outcomes, environmental outcomes. It would enable a multi-purpose benefit to the west of Melbourne. It would give us tremendous returns, and it would give us much better connection of communities, and lower our alienation and negative benefits that so many of our communities suffer from. And it is an idea that's well and truly worth, that's really come about. It's really time for it.
Great, thank you, John. So, John, the Riverkeeper, Rivers of the West, extending the rights of the rivers as of the Yarra has. And I think one of the interesting things about that, John, of course, is the river now has a voice. The Yarra has a voice in matters, which is quite an unusual and game-breaking piece of legislation for Victoria, so she'll be proud of that. Let's hear from the jobs and skills. Is that down here? Thanks to Denise. Jobs and skills and entrepreneurship. What did you come up with? Table?
Growth going on in the western suburbs, massive growth. The only problem is that the percentage of jobs that should come with the growth isn't occurring. And one of the problems is that we can't attract enough businesses quickly enough to help make up for it. So that's what creates a lot of the congestion and travel on the roads, because there isn't a job within the 20 minutes that ideally people should have to travel. One of the things that we want to also do is attract a variety of jobs. We're well known for our manufacturing and for our logistics and transport, but we're not that well known for the number of people who have got university degrees and PhDs that live in the western suburbs but travel elsewhere to work. And so we need to create industries or attract industries into the western suburbs that these people can actually work closer to home and closer to family and recreation. So we need a diversity of jobs. We need to attract investment. We should be encouraging. We shouldn't be scared of who brings the money for the investment, but we should be talking to them. And the other thing is youth unemployment is far, far too high. And so a system needs to be set up where not only can you help a young person find a job, but actually have the facilities to be able to work with them to keep them in that job for as long as possible. And then if they want to transition into another line of work later, something that they can fall back onto, again, maybe to hold their hand until they're up and running. And if we do that, and I know on one of the other tables before we talked about crime prevention with crime for young people. If you can do that, get them in a job and keep them in it, then the crime rate should actually drop, I would suggest.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
I just want to say something about the opportunities.
Just briefly.
I think there's some fantastic opportunities with the skills and educated people out here and the manufacturing background to reimagine manufacturing, to develop new industries, advanced manufacturing, urban manufacturing. We've got the type of real estate stock for it, and I think we've got the kind of knowledge. So.
Terrific, thank you. So with the reimagining of manufacturing, creating local jobs that will reduce travel, the need for travel, a variety of jobs, diversification of opportunities and attracting investment, we will see significant impact. Thank you very much for your table contributions. Let's hear also from the public transport, congestion and freight. There was a table busy and other tables, so it's here.
Thank you. Yeah, we spend a lot of time talking about transport. When we talked about what the real issue is multimodal. So the issue is around one road crossing over the Werribee River. This is about infrastructure not keeping up with development. It's about buses being really crowded in Point Cook, and yet also issues around people having behaviour of not using buses in other areas where they need to use it. When we think about how we know we were successful, is we know that there'll be less accidents, we've got less cars on the road, that there is true choice for people to use different modes, that there are flexible options for buses to move around in different ways and connect people, and that there is an airport link through Sunshine. And better regional connections of the trains to go from Geelong to Bendigo and so on and so forth with easy connections.
Great, thank you very much. Multimodal choice and connectivity, joined up network, really important points, and I thank you everyone for those contributions there today. And perhaps our time for our final table was around health and wellbeing and the sense of using that to resolve or address sense of disadvantage. Thank you, sir.
No, I don't need to shoot. Okay, thank you. Good evening. Yeah, it's good for my health, keeps me fit. One of the biggest disadvantages in our region, and everybody knows, is obviously all our infrastructure. But the biggest problem we're going to have in our region is hospital. We've got two main hospitals in our region, which is Mercy and also the Sunshine Hospital. Now the pressure on these hospitals is getting greater and greater, and as our populations increase, they're not going to be able to cope. We badly need this in the West, and we're pushing for everybody to support us to get another hospital in our region. In our region especially, because that will bring jobs, it will bring education, and it will help the health of our community. So we really need you guys to get behind us for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very clear call for action there. New hospital in the inner west or the west will respond to population growth. We've heard earlier today, it's one of the fastest growing regions in the nation. So that puts a lot of pressure on all sorts of infrastructure. Thank you all for those. We haven't got time to go through any more, I'm afraid, but all your work is critically important. I might just make this one ad here. If you've got a final comment or a final suggestion or a brainwave, please let us know tonight. Speak to your table host. They'll make as many notes as they can. Each thing that has been written will be documented. The partnership will see everything that you've generated tonight, and with the partnership stewardship of that material, the Minister, the Cabinet will eventually see some, I hope, really robust and impactful recommendations, because that's what the best in the West deserve. Before we hand over and I invite the Minister to close off tonight, I would invite you one more time to take your handsets in your hand, one final push of the button, and it's a pretty simple question. Have we got them? I'll give you enough time now to collect them, take them out of the briefcase. Are we all good? And your time is open. Just a simple question. How satisfied are you that the opportunities tonight to share and discuss priorities for your region? Very satisfied, neutral, dissatisfied. Well, at least no one was very dissatisfied. Well, that's very good. Would have been a big effort to have someone say, I'm really dissatisfied. Okay, thank you all very much. Before I hand over, I'd like to invite Alex Cockram, Chair of the Western Metropolitan Partnership, to provide some reflections and to perhaps share some insights from tonight. Alex.
Thank you. Thanks everyone, and thanks, you guys have been amazing tonight. You've been engaged, you've been offering up suggestions. I was able to sit at a number of tables and hear contributions people were making about not only what some of the challenges are, but really specific and important kind of ways to move forward, and so I thank you for that. I also thank you, I guess that there's been a reinforcement of the areas that we've been working on, but also there's been some new ideas tonight, so I really thank you kind of for moving outside of some of the things that we'd already started to plan and really kind of make sure we're orientated in the right direction. The other thing that this room confirmed, and every time we talk about the West, the community of the West wants us to highlight this, is that this is a fantastic community with huge opportunity and many, many things that it wants to celebrate. And I always am very conscious, and so is the rest of the members of the partnership, that we want to make this as much as possible also a kind of a strengths-based advice and advocacy, in the sense of trying to find really positive solutions for the West whilst acknowledging some of those challenges that we're trying to meet. All of your input has been captured, as we've said, and I look forward to receiving a full report back of what's been discussed here tonight. For those that were at the Assembly last year, you will already know, but for all of those that are new, you will be emailed a report once it's been completed. And I think that's a really important part of us feeding back and staying honest about, that we take the feedback and that we actually provide you with a direct response. And we feel really committed that we should be held accountable for the time that you've given us in giving us this advice tonight. From here, the partnership will review what you've told us and start developing the 2018 advice to government. We'll continue to work with government and other stakeholders to progress the priorities for the region, and we're committed to work with you to deliver better outcomes. I wanted to click. Can you click? Where's it put it? Oh, here. Sorry. Just one thing that we haven't had a chance to talk a lot about tonight, but I did want to highlight. There has been this wonderful opportunity that government has given all the regions to have submissions through the Pick My Project initiative, where people have been submitting up into this thing for grants between 20,000 and 200,000 local community organisations. We've had some fantastic applications from the West. And how they are selected is that you and the rest of the community vote on them. These will be coming online in August, and community will vote and will choose the projects that will be funded within our region. And each of the metro regions is allocated a specific amount of money, an equal amount of money, which is good. And each of the regions, therefore, there will be projects that are funded and will be progressed within the West of Melbourne. So please do keep a lookout for that in August. And please do, if you want to have further information, the Pick My Project team is actually up the back there if you haven't already met with them. On behalf of the members of the Western Metro Partnership, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to come out tonight. And I know many of you took a period of time to get here, and we really appreciate the time you've taken. Your feedback is highly valued, and as I've said to you, what is important to us and what we will continue to focus on is developing a prosperous, innovative, livable and connected West. And I really, as I say, hope you continue to engage in this conversation. I'd like to welcome back to the stage, oh, here we are. I'd like to welcome back to the stage the Minister for Suburban Development, Energy, Environment and Climate Change, Minister D'Ambrosio, to close. Thanks, Will.
Thanks very much, Alex, and thank you all. It's been a wonderful privilege to be here tonight. To sit and hear, and I've grazed and heard a lot of great ideas and interactions, and thank you very much for trusting this process. I think it's really important for me to say that, because it is a very different way to engage with community, and what is vitally important is that you actually know what happens after tonight. Similarly to what happened this time last year, is that the vital information and ideas that you've discussed here tonight go back to that partnership team, and they work it through, and they help to improve or refine the priorities that they identified last year, and then of course present those priorities back to government. And it's an obligation on government through myself as the Minister for Suburban Development to ensure that all of the relevant portfolio ministers receive that up-to-date agenda, if you like, or priorities, and then respond to those, so that this time next year we come back and we can report back on those. So tonight, of course, I've heard a lot of very clear articulation around the jobs and skills, transport, health, education, broad environmental goals, community connectedness and diversity, and how all of these and more priority themes help to shape and build stronger and more resilient communities, because ultimately those are not individual themes. They come together, they interact, sometimes they bump up against each other in terms of the importance of these things, but ultimately it's what shapes and helps to breathe life into a community that is well integrated, well knitted together, and ultimately it's the success of these things are measured by the extent of happiness that does exist in a community. So thank you so much for that, and that's something I think that I'm very keen for us to ensure that we never lose sight of what this is all about. So there's a lot of work ahead, of course, as the partnership uses that feedback, as I said, to refine the priorities, and then of course prepare their second round of advice for government. So we look forward to getting that, of course. We want to make sure that we want to work with you to make the West an even better place to live and work, and its communities healthier and stronger together. And we can tell that you have got a lot of faith in that when you come together as you have here tonight. You do that knowing that you come not only prepared to present your own ideas, but you're actually prepared to listen to other people's ideas and then work together to shaping an understanding of what's really important, what is the essential important elements of what will make you a stronger community. So thank you so much. Now, I'm not going to be the final word here tonight, which is a good thing. So what I would like to do is finish up by saying and introducing, really, that we have the Strathmore Secondary College Choir that will perform some songs. So please, they will certainly have the last word, and please give them all a very, very warm welcome, and thank you and good night.
Da 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 da. Tell me once again, what? Tell me once again, what? Tell me once again, what?
Let's give it up for them. Fantastic, exceptional talent. Well done. And they're very competitive booking rates. So get in touch with the school. Thank you all very much for your time tonight. Have a safe and pleasant trip home. Good night and farewell.